Hey, 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 you are joining the Cover One Fantasy Show, and I am one of your three amigos, Greg Tompsett, joined by Rich Haynes and Anthony Prohaska. Anthony, how we doing tonight?
I think when you started, I was still doing the stupid finger guns, so I'm a little disappointed that that's how I started this episode off. But I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, now we're all doing it, so it's better.
And
I'm doing
Shootout.
all right. As a Bills fan, I'm still depressed, and I think football's a dumb game.
dumb game that we're
And I
going to talk
prefer,
about more.
yeah, don't want to acknowledge it whatsoever. But I'm doing all right. We're almost at the back end of the week. We have an amazing show tonight. We're probably not going to get a lot of views because there's an amazing game between two powerhouses on Thursday Night Football, aka the Baltimore Ravens and the Miami Dolphins. But I'm doing good. Rich, how you doing?
Yeah, doing good. Browns got a much needed victory in Cincinnati this week, and my Cavs are not terrible, even though this is a football show. Repping the Cavs a little bit. It's kind of fun to be able to watch basketball again. So yeah, I don't know. My work's been pretty normal. Nothing crazy this week, and yeah, just looking forward to the Browns Patriots this week. And I know you guys would love us to smack them in the face, so we will do our best.
Big Browns fans. Big Browns fans this week. I know the Brian Burns interview got some run about, the Mac Jones kind of doing the alligator roll on the ankle.
Oh yeah, he Kurt angled him hardcore,
and
he tried to snap the ankle.
Wasn't great. And then Brian Burns saying, "Yeah, I wish we were playing him again. I wish my other pass rushers happy hunting." And I tweeted out saying, like, "Man, it sure would be nice if he was going up against a pass rusher who, I don't know, tried to impale the quarterback with his own helmet some other time. That'd be fun." So I'm certainly looking forward to seeing Myles Garrett maybe get a clean run at him here. We'll see where that goes. But tonight we're going to talk about a handful of things here as we go through just regular, some of the advice on pickups, some of the questions. You'll let us know in the chat what questions you guys have and what things are out there that you're wondering about. We'll bring up some of the ones that we got in the Slack channel as well. But we'll also talk a little bit tonight as we're getting there in a lot of leagues. This is trade deadline time. We want to talk a little bit about kind of the recipe that goes into building a trade, because I talked to a lot of different people about it, and I think some kind of have it in their head that, I want to go get this guy and I want to have, whoever it might be for the stretch run, so I'm just going to make an offer for him, and that they're dumb if they don't accept it. And that it's really kind of difficult to work your way back into finding a team interested in trading and being able to pull off a trade that makes sense. So I thought that would be a good topic tonight to kind of talk through what do we look for when we go in to do this. So I don't know, before I kind of go through my process, Rich, what's something that you kind of, how you try to figure out how to even go about pulling off a trade? We'll talk most of this conversation on kind of redraft, where both teams are looking to get something out of it for this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. It's hard to target one particular player because obviously if they're on a contender, like that contender's probably not going to go give up, a good player if you're going down the stretch. So what I'll try to do is I'll look for teams, obviously that, are still contending, but, maybe have injuries in a certain spot, or, they obviously have a general weakness, and I'll look to see if my strength on my team matches up with that particular weakness. So I'll then look for players on those teams that I find valuable. So it may not be a specific target. It's going to be at a position that I'm looking for. So if I'm looking, like right now, everyone's looking for running backs. So it's hard. It's a very strange year from that standpoint, like more so than I think any other year that I can remember. Yeah. But, if you're looking for a running back in the league, there's one league I'm actually in that's not, none of us are in it together, where the gentleman has 4 running backs, actually, like Darrell Henderson and Damian Williams and Dalvin Cook and someone else in that like Damian Harris range. And I have a lot of wide receivers, and I've been trying to work a deal with him forever. And I think it's just a matter of time where it's going to be like Amari Cooper for, Darrell Henderson. And I think maybe a name value I might have to give up a little bit there, just because, again, running backs are so hard to come by this year that are starters. But, that's kind of what I'm looking to do. So, I try to target, areas of need on the other team. Hopefully I have that strength, and I kind of whittle it down from there.
I'll kind of go through a little bit of mine. It's very, very similar. I literally do like process of elimination. I go through every roster in the league. I'll look through every single roster. I don't particularly pick and choose who I'm making offers to if I find the right match. But it's just like Rich said, where I'll go through, first I evaluate my own team. What can I afford to give up? Out of what I can afford to give up based on where the strengths of my roster are, I'll then look at, okay, what's the better name value versus what I think I can get out of it. Because everybody wants to trade their bad players for your good players. Like, it just very rarely goes that way. So look, okay, I have a league where I'm stacked at wide receiver, and I have Cooper Kupp, and I have DJ Moore, and I have Chris Godwin, and Antonio Brown, and Deebo Samuel, and I'll go through and be, okay, from a name value standpoint, who can I afford? I'm not going to move Cooper Kupp, but everybody else, okay, who do I think is valued the most out there? And right now I'm having 2 good wide receivers on my bench every single week. So I can afford to trade one, and it doesn't really hurt me. So who has the most name value? Then, just like Rich said, you have to go through and look, okay, who has someone they can afford to trade? So a lot of times it's going to be, okay, who just stumbled into value and has someone that's worthwhile? So, you find the team that has a nice pickup in that they are in a good position, either with someone like what Rich rattled off where there's 4 just legit starters, or maybe they all of a sudden just stumbled into, hey, Mark Ingram might be good this week. Hey, James Conner all of a sudden is a lot more dependable than what you thought. Do they have another guy that they can afford to move? Do they have a Saquon Barkley on bye this week, and that they're like, well, I got James Conner and I have Mark Ingram, and all of a sudden those guys might be starting caliber guys. Yeah, maybe I'd like to pick up, a Deebo Samuel kind of receiver, and I could insert him into the lineup. And you almost have to work backwards that way and just figure out who you end up with going after versus targeting a set player. It works the same at tight end. I looked in every single league. Who is the team in my league who picked up Pat Freiermuth, and who was their starting tight end beforehand? Because now they're super excited about having Pat Freiermuth, and all of a sudden they might be more willing to trade, a TJ Hawkinson, or more willing to trade a Mark Andrews, because like, oh, well, I have Pat Freiermuth, he's going to score 2 touchdowns every week now, and all of a sudden you might be able to go after a guy like that to be able to do it. And it's always, I think you have to be a lot more flexible than maybe what people initially thought. And Anthony, I know we have a trade here. Before we jump into that, what are some of the ways you go after targeting guys in your leagues?
So I always, and I mentioned it a lot on this show, knowing the people in your league. A lot of my leagues are people who I know either from fantasy or just in personal life. So I start with the people in my league who I'm closest to and who I have the best rapport with. I start with their rosters, because it's fantasy trades are legitimately one of the hardest things to work in the universe, because you'll be like, hey, can I trade my wide receiver 2 for your RB2? And they'll be like, no, how about my kicker for Alvin Kamara? And then you're like, that's not valid. What are we doing? It's so hard to work that. So I'll start with like my boys or people who I have the best relationship with, if I know them, or we text regularly, and it's like, hey, because, again, you want that honest conversation. Like, hey, I'm looking at this guy. What are your thoughts? Nah, I'm not willing to give up him, but I would do this for that. Okay, and you can have that back and forth and build a natural negotiation. That is my first step. Who do you have the best rapport with in the league? Start from there, and then whose roster meets what you need. Second off from that, I love Rich's point, and then Greg, your point as well. I start to look for that roster value. Like, man, I've got 4 really good receivers, but only 2 good running backs. This guy over here has 4 really good running backs, but only 2 good receivers. Maybe we can meet somewhere in the middle, and we can do my 3rd best receiver for his 3rd best running back, so on and so forth. Start to see that value. I always like to not necessarily overshoot, but I want to, like, if there's 3 receivers, right, that I'm considering, I won't go for that top guy. I'll go for that middle one, even though I really want to get the 3rd tier guy, because if I get the 2nd tier guy and he accepts, cool, that's awesome. If not, then you're playing a little like Jedi mind trick where you're like, okay, you won't give me player 2. Well, would you do it for player 3? And then they're like, yeah, I do that. And you're like, well, I just got you because I wanted player 3 all along. That's also a thing I like to do as well. And then also big, especially around this time of year, we mentioned in the last couple episodes, playoff matchups. Even if it's somebody who might be a tier below perception-wise from name value or production up to this point, but if you've got somebody who's in tier 3 or at the top end of tier 3, but his playoff matchup is cake, and you've got a dude who's sitting there in tier number 2 and has been killing it, but his playoff matchup sucks, I think that's a potential package. And maybe if you can even get them to add somebody into sweetening the deal, that's a thing as well. So I'm big into knowing your people, starting from there, knowing roster breakdowns like you guys mentioned, and figuring out where you can get the value, trying to shoot a little higher. So when you come down a little bit, you're really getting the guy you wanted all along. And then playoff matchups are huge. I can't tell you how many times early in fantasy where I'd be like, dude, I just traded for so-and-so. And then I'm like, oh God, his matchups are terrible. I'm going to get like 4 points. This was a waste. So yeah, those are my big three.
Well, and I think that, two other real quick strategies before we talk about Cason's trade here is I think volume is king right now. And Greg, I think you are the champion of this. You will send out 75 trade offers and one of them will stick, or maybe two of them will stick. So yeah, I mean, just, shoot has got to shoot, as they say. So
I'll pick
chuck
out
up
3
your
guys
shots.
I'm willing to trade, and I'll send everyone an offer for him. Like, I just need one person to say yes.
Volume is king in actual fantasy and in fantasy trade.
Yeah,
as well.
just shoot's got to shoot. Throw them out there.
I'm the Lou Williams of fantasy football trade.
Yep. And then at the same point, don't be if you have a lot of depth, like let's say you've really hit the waiver wire well, and you have like a nice team where you have a lot of players. And this is my strategy, and people may differ from this, but if I've made it to week 8, 9, 10, and it's the trade deadline's coming up, I want to win. I want to make the playoffs obviously in cash, but I want to try to win. So I'm not going to waste that depth on my team at this point, and I'm going to roll the dice and gamble that I'm going to not have some catastrophic injury. Yep. I'm totally willing to package 3 players for one, maybe give up more than I need to get the player that I think I can plug in my starting lineup.
Yeah, it'll be perceived as an overpay, but it's improving your starting lineup.
So yeah, don't hang on to depth that you're never going to use and sit there and finish 4th instead of taking the shot at first. And volume is king, and shoot has got to shoot a little bit there. So those are 2 other comments.
So here,
this trade is huge.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So Kaysen pulls off. He gets Jonathan Taylor and Jerry Jeudy for DK Metcalf and Nick Chubb. It's super interesting because you're taking health into play, both with Chubb and Jeudy returning from injuries and where they can play. You've got obviously some recent real high level ceiling performances from Jonathan Taylor. I'm looking real quick at the Colts' upcoming schedule.
Oh, you beat me too. I was gonna say, if somebody pull up the schedule.
Yeah, so you're talking Colts go on a run here. They have 2 nasty ones. So they have the Jags this week, but then Bills and Buccaneers. But then they have Texans, Patriots, Cardinals, Raiders, Jags.
But the Jags defense is amazing. I don't know if you've heard or seen. They hold some good offenses.
Yeah,
just
apparently they can shut out even great offenses. So I'm really torn here. Nick Chubb is one of my favorite trade targets. Although it was previous to this past week. I was trying for him similar to now. I'm trying to get Saquon and people like that everybody's a little unsure of, and is he going to come back? You need to buy low at that moment where you could have bought low on Nick Chubb while he was out. When he comes back and rips off 70-yard touchdowns, it's kind of harder to trade for now. Rich, what do you think out of these 2?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Obviously, I have a little bit of bias as a Browns fan. Yeah, I mean, Chubb, in my opinion, is just as good as Jonathan Taylor. Now, in football-wise, I think it's better. But fantasy-wise, because of the split carries and whatnot, obviously Taylor's, I think, the number 2 running back in most formats right now. He's a stud, so you can't get mad about that. And DK Metcalf, interestingly enough, this year is very, very Tyler Lockett-esque as well, Mike Williams-esque, where it's, boom or bust each week. So maybe you're hoping to get a little more consistency with Jerry Jeudy. I kind of like Jerry Jeudy. I think they're going to target him and make him a part of that offense in Denver. So, honestly, I don't. It's 50. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a fair trade.
I don't know. I don't know who.
It's a fair trade.
A very fair trade, and I guess I don't know what Kaysen, what you were. I think I'm assuming that you were. Maybe worried about just Chubb and not having, you wanted maybe something more solid and Taylor perceived down the stretch, or you not have to worry about Hunt coming back and carries and that kind of stuff. I'm assuming that's kind of what you thought there. Because I think, sending DK Metcalf or Jerry Jeudy, obviously I think you gave up a little bit there, but maybe not a ton. I don't know, Russell Wilson's going to come back, so that could be interesting too.
I love how balanced that trade is.
Yeah, I would probably prefer DK and Chubb personally, but yeah, it's a fair trade.
It's wild how good value that it's so balanced. Like
coming from a position that as long as your wide receiver depth was in good shape, that's I think a doable trade. So it all depends on what the rest of your roster is. But I agree. I think it's very fair, and that I think Jonathan Taylor's probably ranked the highest of the 4 players in the trade, and oftentimes that's a tiebreaker. If you're coming away with the best player, that's normally a good thing in a trade. And like Rich said, I think that with Kareem Hunt coming back, maybe it does cap Chubb's value down the stretch. But I do like Chubb as an asset to go after.
Yeah, I wonder too if there's any type of if it's a keeper league or something like that. And I'd be like, oh man, like Jonathan Taylor could be a fun thing. But yeah, I think I'm leaning towards that DK Chubb side still a little. But I mean, super. I can't. All the trades that people send us in here, they're so balanced and well thought out. And I'm just like, how come I can't? Can I join your league? Can I be in this, please? I would love that.
I'll give you Greg Zuerlein for Alvin Kamara.
I'll give you my kicker.
So Anthony, what's your thoughts here? Obviously Derrick Henry goes down, and I think that anyone who bid on Adrian Peterson or had him as your number 1 waiver claim, that was a smart move. That was not a dumb move. You had to take that chance because you don't know how it's going to work. He had been with the team 2 days and still got as many touches as anybody else in that backfield. I still think there's a chance there. Obviously, it was muddied a bit with Deontay Foreman and Jeremy McNichol in the mix there. Plus, they had a pick 6 and a interception return to the 3-yard line. So a bunch of drives that didn't have yardage opportunities, and then the ball went back to the Rams. So I don't know that we have a perfect view of how the Titans are going to use that backfield. This week is going to be a really big indicator because now you're going to be able to see a full week of practice from Peterson. They're going to have their choice of how they want the backfield to work. So we'll start with you, Anthony. What are your thoughts if you're in a spot where you need to start a back? Are you comfortable starting Peterson, or do you need to wait one more week to see how they use him?
I want to lead off by saying what ridiculous shape that man is in, given his age, and that he's just been kind of chilling.
Just a week off the couch at 36 years old, and just boom, NFL running back. Yep.
He got the ball, and granted, he didn't look like prime Adrian Peterson, but he looked good. He had movement, he had burst, he had acceleration. He was physically, he was cut and jacked. I was so impressed seeing him on the field. I was just really legitimately oh my God, look at the shape this dude is in. What a machine. From a usage perspective, I thought the game against the Rams was going to be a very poor game script for Peterson. I thought it was going to be so hard to judge. I think so many people thought the Rams were much better and the Titans are kind of a paper tiger, and then just weirdness ensues. I was very encouraged by how many carries he got and how much of a share he got, especially just coming off the street this week. He got that goal line touchdown. He was also on the field for Ryan Tannehill's play action touchdown run. So he looks to be the guy down there. I'm comfortable starting him. If you're in a position where you have to think whether or not you have to start Adrian Peterson, I would assume that's because your running back depth is in some sort of shambles at some point. For example, I'll use myself as a reference. I bid on him in our Dynasty League where almost anything and everything has gone wrong for my team in there and is cursed. And I've got Aaron Jones as my RB1, but then my next 2 running backs are Myles Gaskin and Mike Davis. So I get Adrian Peterson, and that's my thought process each week, but that's because of look who my second and third running backs are. I think he is a startable back. This is if you're looking at him in a vacuum, I think he's a higher end flex, maybe a low B or a low RB2. A low B2.
He's a low B.
He's a low B2. He's layabouts. He's layabouts, Murray. You really got to start to see what he looks like. Does he start to wear down? I think what's encouraging for him is if McNichols was going to be the guy, I don't think they bring in Peterson and they don't bring in Foreman. This is a guy who's been on the team, who's been in camp. They know what they have in him. He's also very good at the role that he does as that third down back, receiving back who can get some work. I think he stays in that role. I think Peterson and Foreman split the Henry touches, but I think it leans probably 70-30 in favor of Peterson. And then it's just a matter of game script every week and how much he's going to see the ball. But I also think he gets the red zone touches. So I think you could be seeing a decent amount of games from him where he only gets 10 to 13 carries, but he's got 3 red zone touches with a solid shot to get in the end zone. So I think high end flex, low RB2.
In their remaining schedule, you have 2 Texans games, a Jaguars game, and a Dolphins game. that are all really positive game scripts for that kind of game. I know, Rich, I don't know how many spots you're in where you took a stab at Peterson. Where do you think it, as far as, it's similar to Anthony, where it's if you're in a spot where you have to, and you're in the Brandon Bolden, Mark Ingram, Adrian Petersons of the world, he's as good of a stab, or are you still waiting?
No, I picked him up in a couple leagues, and I'm starting him this week as my flex in both of them because I'm in the situations that Anthony just described. So yeah, I mean, if he's going to get, I think anytime right now, and again, this season I feel is very odd, more so than most from a running back standpoint. I think if you have a running back that's going to get 10 to 15 touches and maybe a couple targets out of the backfield and maybe a goal line opportunity or two, I don't know how I don't know how you obviously unless you're stacked running back, it's hard to not put that into your lineup right now. So I think he's certainly going to have some value down the stretch. I'm going to start him this week. I agree with everything Anthony kind of said during his piece. I'm not a super big fan of their schedule, honestly, from a rushing standpoint, but Tennessee's not going to suddenly chuck the ball up 45 times a game. So I think they're going to continue to stick to their game script.
How about this crazy trade?
Wild.
Yeah, you want to take a stab at this, Rich?
Yeah, this one is crazy. Kyler's dealing with the ankle a little bit. Kamara's dealing with a little bit of a knee. You got, CeeDee Lamb, I feel, has been solid but underperformed. I think the whole Dallas offense has underperformed,
sure.
Compared to what people thought that was going to be going into the season. Then on the flip side of that, you got Aaron Rodgers, who lies about his vaccination status. You have A.J. Brown, who's certainly come on recently, which is nice.
And his fiance makes her own soap.
Who's been a stud. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers is a freaking moron, but that's a conversation for another time. Again, this is another one that is kind of just like right there for me.
I'm trying to line them up.
I think I prefer Taylor over Kamara at this point. I love Kamara, but that
the knee
that
thing is scary. The knee thing is
scary. The quarterback situation's weird there. I actually think I prefer A.J. Brown over CeeDee Lamb right now too, because again, while I just said I don't think they're going to chuck the ball 45 times a game, obviously they're not going to hand the ball off. I think they are going to pass a little bit more. Yeah. So I like A.J. Brown, I think, more than CeeDee, and then I think Kyler and A-Rod's kind of a coin flip-ish, as long as A-Rod comes back there and doesn't
real quick
lie
for
anymore,
A.J. Brown, this past game was as tilted of a game script as you can get. They ran barely any plays, like 50 total plays in the game, multiple defensive scores, multiple short drives, tons of running game with the lead the entire time. A.J. Brown still had 11 targets. Like that's as tilted of a negative game script as you can get, and A.J. Brown still had 11 targets. He took it, 5 for 42. It wasn't some amazing game. It's probably like 9.2 points in most leagues. That's the floor. That is the lowest, worst game script you can get. He still had 11 targets.
Yeah, he also dropped like a 14-yard first down gain and had Ramsey on him for a bit. So yeah, that's and he's so talented too. Like in fantasy, if you can somehow have an opportunity where you've got like a situation that works for volume and then the talent on top of it, and A.J. Brown is there, like he was already there, but especially now with Henry going down. I have multiple shares of all these guys, but as a Kamara and Kyler owner, I'm worried. This is now the second year in a row where Kyler Murray has picked up some sort of injury. This is my second year in a row owning him, where I don't want to play up the idea of he's smaller and should have played baseball, yada, yada. This is why he should have done that, blah, blah, blah. But he keeps picking up these joint injuries, whether it's shoulder or ankle or knee. These are repeated things that he gets, and they affect his play. And his legs are a tremendous part of his game. They're also a tremendous part of this offense. Greg, I know you put out, I think you retweeted somebody's stat of the amount of rushing attempts that the Cardinals have and how it's only second to Tennessee.
Blew me away. Yeah, Rich, did you know the Cardinals are second in the NFL in rushing attempts?
I knew they were up there. I didn't know they were second.
I was blown. I guess I just think of the air raid thing, and not only that, they're second in the NFL. And it was 284 to Tennessee's 286. So
and only 49 of them were from Kyler.
And only 49 were Kyler. So they had 237 running back rushing attempts. I was blown away.
they're seeing a ton of, to relate it to my episode of Disguised Coverage last night, they're seeing a ton of too high coverage. And Kingsbury is like, all right, cool. If you guys are going to show us that, we're going to run the ball a bunch, and then we'll do play action off of that. Yeah. And so it's a running team combined with Kaiir wanting to run. I don't want to say cut bait on him. I would take this deal. I think Rodgers, Brown, and Taylor are a safer option. I think if you're looking at overall talent,
word I was going to use. Safer.
Safer option. I think overall talent, it's pretty comparable, but I could see you sitting there in week 12 or 13, and you're like, man, I have CD, Kaiir, and Kamara, and the only one I'm starting is CD because Kaiir and Kamara are either both out or both really banged up, and they're going to play, but they're only going to get you minimal points. Yeah, I would take the Rodgers, Brown,
Talk
Taylor
about
side.
the sizzle versus the substance. You're trading the 3 sexier names. It's the 3 flashier, sexier names for the 3, a little bit more boring assets from that standpoint, and it's probably a safe transition at this time of year that you can feel a lot more confident you're going to start those guys every single week the rest of the run. Obviously any NFL running back, you never know, but that's a tough one, and we'll do one more here on just while we're on Kamara. Bam asking should he be out? I wouldn't be out on Kamara. I wouldn't be like trying to move him no matter what and trying to get off him. But if you can still get like top 5 overall player value and getting someone like McCaffrey back, and I will say Cam Newton is the guy who gave Christian McCaffrey 129 targets. So it's like, that signing might not be bad for McCaffrey. Giving up Keenan Allen to drop to TJ Lock or to Tyler Lockett's a lot. Keenan Allen is really starting to step into that. We weren't really sure, was it Mike Williams or Keenan Allen? That's a lot to tack on to Kamara. I don't know if I'm quite that nervous, but I don't know if it's crazy.
Keenan's the tipping point for me.
Yeah, agree. I think I would hold. No, I don't think I would. Because CMC has just as many injury concerns as Kamara does. So, there's no guarantee that he's going to play the rest of the year, especially if things continue to go south in Carolina. They could shut him down. They could just shut him down because what's the point? And, so, Keenan is probably the safest player in that, in out of those 4. Yeah. And, from a rest of the year projection standpoint, just kind of taking a peek at some of our friends' stats here. He's, they have a lot of different sites have him between 5 and 8 for the rest of the year at the wide receiver position, and Lockett's down usually in the 20s. Yeah. So, Greg, to your point, that drop off's too much for me. So I would probably hold Kamara and Keenan in that particular situation.
I agree with everything Rich said.
Anthony, how about this one? I'll say Brandon Eyuk is one of my favorite buy low target guys. If you can get as a throw in, or if someone thinks they're downgrading and you can trade away a receiver because you're going after a running back and you're asking for a running back and a receiver back, and it's a 2-for-2 trade. Try to get someone like Brandon Eyuk, who is in the doghouse forever and all of a sudden is now maybe back into the swing of things. I'm trying to trade Deebo Samuel in redraft. I love him in Dynasty and Keeper, but in redraft I'm trying to trade him because I think he's not going to get those like 14 target games that he had before, where now it's going to be a 1A, 1B again, which we expected coming into the year. Brandon Eyuk was going before Deebo Samuel. I think we could see that 1A, 1B the rest of the way here, and I like Eyuk as a buy low candidate here. So I would pick Eyuk pretty comfortably, but Kadarius Toney's a fun player.
You literally it's like you took my notebook and read it. Eyuk is a big time buy low for me. This has been a weird thing all year in San Francisco. He's got a ton of talent. He fits the system. He's such an explosive guy, and for whatever reason, just not getting snaps, not getting targets, not getting touches, all these, weird things. He seems to be out of that. Again, a really good system fit in San Francisco with what they want to do, his talent. And then if we're looking at a schedule the rest of the way here, they play the Rams this week, but then after that, Jags, Vikings, Seahawks, Bengals, Falcons, Titans, and then the Texans in championship week. Nice little favorable schedule there for him. I think Toney is the sexier guy. Daniel Jones is maybe, I guess, better than Jimmy Garoppolo. But I'm going Eyuk all day.
So I'll let Rich handle this one. He could flip around the trophy and show his name on there.
Oh, look who it is. I was going to say, actually, I did see that comment, and Anthony said, made a comment about The Notebook, and then I immediately just thought about Joe and how his favorite movie in all time is The Notebook. So just throw that out there. He used to have a DVD of it back in the day, just in his closet. I used to hide from him because he was
quality movie.
But, you know, he liked to cry to The Notebook. It's okay.
It wasn't. Still is.
Who should I start in an obnoxious 6-point touchdown superflex QB league? Hurts, Tannehill, and Wilson. I'm assuming he means or Wilson, but I don't know. I guess he means or Wilson. And I don't actually know his roster. I don't pay attention to him anymore. I guess it's Russ Wilson. I don't know. I mean, he might maybe win this, but probably not. Let's be honest. I'm assuming is it Russell Wilson? Do you know?
Yeah, I'm looking real quick just to make sure. I'm assuming it's not asking about Zach Wilson. So, yeah. Jalen Hurts, Ryan Tannehill, and the return of Russell Wilson.
The return of Russell Wilson. You know, I think Hurts has been pretty good this year, so I'd probably stick with Hurts. Yeah, Anthony. I mean, he's not the Undertaker there, buddy, but
dude,
he's pretty solid.
You're trying to make it into something it's not.
Well, I will say we can replay the tape on that one.
I said it, but I did it to make a reference people could understand. I didn't want to go too niche.
Everyone understood the reference. You're totally fine. If you're gonna pick a week to fade Hurts, Vic Fangio is still dealing he is still throwing his fastball. Like if you're gonna pick a week, it's on the road in Denver at Denver. I think Tannehill's the easiest start of the group, but again, all three are not awesome matchups because Tannehill's playing New Orleans at home. New Orleans is a good defense. Russell Wilson's on the road in Green Bay. All of them are kind of tough.
The best over-under is the Seattle Green Bay right now at about 50,
okay.
49.5, 50. The other two are about 44-ish from an over-under standpoint. I'm sure Russ will be fine, but I guess I'm a little nervous about him. He broke his, hit his finger on his throwing hand, so who knows? I don't know. I'd probably be a little bit nervous there. I would probably just roll Hurts and Tannehill, but I also could potentially be trying to sabotage him, so we'll figure it out.
I was even looking. He's playing Sean and Dennis. I was just looking to see who he's playing.
I'd go Tannehill and Wilson.
Yeah, I think I am too. I think I'm Tannehill and Wilson.
They've been targeting this Green Bay week for since Russ got hurt. The doctors cleared him immediately. This has all been part of the plan. I am a little worried. Just some rustiness, no pun intended, on the Russ part coming back. And Green Bay's defense has been a lot better this year, but I'm going Russ and Tannehill mainly because the matchup for Hurts against Denver's defense, running with what they want to do with Fangio, and the Eagles' offense has gotten progressively better these last several weeks, and Jalen Hurts is not scoring touchdowns anymore.
Yeah. Other guys are actually doing stuff. Correct. It's not just him.
It's like they realize, maybe we shouldn't drop Hurts back to pass 50 times and not run the ball at all with anyone. So they're mixing things up more. He is getting more rushing yards every week. They're leaning more into that play action game and the running aspect, but we're seeing Jordan Howard touchdowns, Boston Scott touchdowns, Kenneth Gainwell touchdowns. So I think with how they're trending in a better direction for the rest of the players on the Eagles offense combined with the defense, I'm going Tannehill and Wilson. Or again, I could be lying because maybe I also want to sabotage this guy.
So we've got a couple of quick ones here. William asking Terry McLaurin or Adrian Peterson. You got to go McLaurin for
Scary
sure.
Terry, baby.
Yeah.
But there's one that we talked about pre-show, Rich, before you jumped on. We were talking about the OBJ landing spot. And obviously, I was personally surprised just from preparing for his next contract that he didn't take that number 2 role in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, and he went for, kind of a weird spot where now I don't think anybody hurts Cooper Kupp. Obviously, what he has going in that offense is there. But I kind of think it might hurt Robert Woods a little bit, and it certainly hurts Van Jefferson, probably hurts Tyler Higbee a little bit, and I don't know if it makes Beckham all that great because now he's really just a mixed bag with Higbee and Van Jefferson and Robert Woods for all that 2, 3, 4, 5 target range. So I don't think it hurts Kupp. Do you think it does, Rich?
No, I don't. Actually, we were talking pre-show, and I put it out on the tweeter. John Johnson III, obviously Browns safety that came over from the Rams. He had some interesting comments, about the situation, and he basically said the offense in for the Rams offense runs through Cooper Kupp. everything runs through Cooper Kupp. Everything is schemed for Cooper Kupp. It sets up the running game. Even the running game runs through Cooper Kupp. He kind of so he was confused as to why Odell would have chosen that team if Odell wanted a more prominent role in an offense. I mean, obviously, LA seems to fit Odell from an off the field perspective very well, but if he truly wanted to go to a team that he could become, this wide receiver, superstar wide receiver again, and maybe land another big contract, that's probably not the right place for him. So no, I don't think it'll hurt Cooper Kupp. I still think he's going to be a great wide receiver. I think it
solidly wide receiver one projected wise the rest of the year.
Yeah, I wouldn't be looking to trade him, even if it was for Tyreek Hill or Devonta Adams.
Not that those are crazy trades to make. No, I still wouldn't.
No, I mean, I guess if you're really worried about it and you can get something else on the side, if you get Devonta Adams and a little piece, sure, okay, go for it. But straight up now, I'd probably just keep riding Cooper Kupp. Yeah, I agree. I think Van Jefferson unfortunately gets hurt the most here, which he was actually starting to come on a little bit in that third wide receiver role. So, and he's a young kid that I thought I thought he was starting to progress a little bit nicely in that offense. So I feel bad for him. But, I don't think Odell's going to be a huge fantasy factor. He might have a game here. Obviously, I think he's going to be better than what he had been because he was non-existent for the Browns. But I don't think all of a sudden he's going to become a, 12 target per game guy. No. I mean, maybe here and there, I guess, if you're really hurting.
Yeah, bye-week flex kind of thing, maybe.
Yeah.
So playing off of that now, I have a couple shares of Robert Woods, and I'm not worried about Cooper Kupp. I'm not worried that Woods becomes worthless or not playable. I am worried that he was already inconsistent, and this is going to make him even less consistent because there's going to be 2 good OBJ games the rest of the year, and in those games, it's probably not going to be great Robert Woods games. I think I'm pretty solidly Adam Thielen. I take that back. This week, I don't think OBJ is going to play Monday night. I'm going to assume not. To be able to show up and be ready in 2 days, I don't think.
Yeah.
So I'm probably a coin flip this week. I think it's okay to play Woods over him this week, but even then, without OBJ in the picture, I was probably already a coin flip. So I'm for sure Thielen the rest of the season and maybe even this week.
I'm torn a little on this. Here's my thought with Odell, right? I think it's an odd situation for him to go there. And also from a Rams offensive standpoint, right? They run a lot of condensed formations, and Woods and Kupp are like primary run blockers on so many snaps. And then they run play action and wide zone out of those looks. And I wonder if from a pure – it's what it comes down to, like the touch piece for Robert Woods, because I think he outsnaps Odell by a lot continuing in LA. But then, like, what do the targets look like? How do things break down? Yeah, I'm going to go with Thielen as well. Like Greg says, he's solidly the number 2 in an offense that will put up points and move the ball. Adam Thielen never gets respect like any year. He just keeps like running sick routes and catching everything that comes his way and trying to do the touchdown dance that Justin Jefferson does, but he can just never pull it off the right way. But yeah, I'm going.
He scores enough to try to do it though.
That is true. Yeah, he gets in the end zone a bunch. You would think at this point, because he scores so much, he'd have the routine down. Like he's had plenty of opportunity. Yeah, I do. I think it's somewhat close, but yeah, I'm leaning Thielen on this one.
Rich, anything different?
No, I agree. I like Thielen. I mean, on the year, they're actually very similar targets, 69 to 66. They're very similar players. Thielen has certainly done a better job of catching touchdowns. So that's given him a little bit of a bump from that standpoint. But I just think that Thielen is probably the play this week. I like the over/unders 53.5 in that game. I think Minnesota, the Chargers will probably be a fun shootout, so I'd probably go Thielen. The over/under in the Rams-Frisco game is fairly high as well, 49 right now, but I don't know. Sometimes there's just something about playing in San Francisco for me that, those games turn into weird, like 18-12, like strange scores. So I think I like the play Minnesota at the Chargers and Thielen in that particular situation.
So how crazy is it that this is a question now?
Yeah,
Rich, what do you think on Patrick Mahomes versus any quarterback that would even be asked previously, but Patrick Mahomes versus a pretty exciting Justin Herbert?
Yeah, I mean, I actually made the decision in one of our big leagues where I traded Mahomes and kept Justin Herbert. I had both And I traded Mahomes for Kamara because I thought Herbert was going to be at least close to Mahomes. I didn't think Mahomes was going to blow him out of the water. I made that trade 3 or 4 weeks ago now at this point. So, I feel pretty good about that decision right now. I think this particular week, again, I just mentioned, the over-under in that Chargers game is high at 53 and a half. I think that's going to be a shootout with Minnesota. Kansas City's in Vegas, also a high over-under. So it's probably a bit of a coin flip, but I would probably lean Herbert right now just because Mahomes and the Chiefs they haven't shown me, that they're the same team that we're used to seeing right now. So I would probably lean Herbert right now, and I think a favorable matchup at home against the Vikings, and I think he's going to put up a nice monster game this week.
Well, and if you look at the season long, I almost think some of the hate has gone almost too far on some of the Chiefs because of so many people are kind of taking joy in them struggling, but when you take a look at the remainder of their schedule, the defenses they're playing against, the Raiders aren't bad. They play them twice. The Cowboys defense is good. The Broncos defense, the Chargers defense, the Steelers, the Bengals. I don't even know who the worst defense is on the remainder of their schedule. They play all like top half of the NFL defenses the whole rest of the year. So there's not like some easy pickings to be able to go and go after, where on the other side of that, the next couple weeks, the Chargers do have 3 solid ones: the Vikings, the Broncos, and the Bengals. Those are the Vikings, Steelers, and Broncos. But then it goes into the Giants, the Chiefs, the Texans. You get a much nicer, and that's going into the fantasy playoffs. So the Chargers are set up a lot better. And I know down here, Legit was asking about who do you go after. That's the way I look at it. I'm not going to pick lesser players, but when you have similar players where like, hey, of course you'd want Tyreek Hill over Keenan Allen. Well, when you look at the schedule and the teams that they play and the over-unders that are going to be in place and how one offense is clicking, it's not crazy to maybe want Keenan Allen versus Tyreek Hill for that playoff stretch, or to want Justin Herbert over Patrick Mahomes for that playoff stretch, or to want Austin Eckler. It's that kind of thing where you do want to look at those and use it as a tiebreaker. Now, that doesn't mean that you want, you're not taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire type players over Austin Eckler type players like that. Regardless of the schedule, you're keeping that tier in place. But when they're close, you want to use things like that as a way to pivot, and that can be a way that you pick up value in that, the other owner thinks they're upgrading by getting Tyreek Hill for their Keenan Allen, and that you now improve somewhere else and get an improved asset when really you think they're going to produce pretty similar outputs because of the playoff schedule and because of what's there. Those are good ways to look at it to see if you can find little areas to carve some value out.
Yeah, and if obviously Mahomes, Herbert, I was kind of just talking about this particular week, but yeah, if you're talking about the full season, Mahomes has the 6th most difficult fantasy schedule for quarterbacks for the remainder of the season, where Herbert, he's middle of the packish, but to Greg's point, the end of that schedule gets much easier. So yeah, definitely lean Herbert from a fantasy schedule perspective. So that's great. And then to Legit's question here, obviously that team is great, by the way. Rodgers, CMC, Taylor, Kupp, Keenan Allen, AJ Brown.
I wouldn't do much anything. You're going to win.
No, but to give him one idea, kind of along your kind of the point you were making there, Greg, Darren Waller is a guy that has the 6th easiest schedule at the tight end position for the remainder of the season, and
kind
Kittle
of had a lull there for a minute.
Had a lull, he was out, he missed a few weeks, right? And then Kittle obviously has been banged up as well, but Kittle has the 4th hardest schedule at the tight end position. So you might be able to, I would probably look to maybe make that type of a move, if anything. And also, Kittle he's always banged up, right? I mean, it just always seems like he's hurt, or he's dealing with some sort of injury. So I might look at trying to do that, and maybe even, I don't know. I think obviously those are pretty equal name value players too, but maybe you could squeeze a little more juice out of that and get maybe a little something on the side to at least start that way, and then maybe back down to just Kittle in Waller straight up type deal and try to do that. But I would try to maybe target Waller at the tight end position for the rest of the season over Kittle. I think it's going to be a more solid play, and obviously a much more favorable schedule from a fantasy standpoint at the tight end position.
All right. That's great advice. I like that a lot. Anthony, what do you think of how trustable Dalton Schultz is?
Oh, I wonder what the rest of your tight end grouping
Tight
looks
end
like.
is a
I
so
know.
it's funny. Tight end was a wasteland for a stretch there, where even Hawkinson and Waller and Kelsey were doing poorly. Now all of a sudden you've had this run where Freiermuth has come out of nowhere, Logan Thomas is coming back, Dan Arnold has kind of popped out, and you have a handful of guys that are kind of coming about and all of a sudden producing. And now it's there's at least some options out there. Kyle Pitts is now being a central focus point for Atlanta. There was a moment where Dalton Schultz was like tight end 3 overall, and now it's kind of settled back down a little bit. What do you think for him?
I think especially if we're going off of just this individual week, like the question has, I think Schultz is a solid option at tight end. They play Atlanta. They play a defense that doesn't match up well with what Dallas wants to do on offense. I also think just not from a posturing standpoint necessarily, but Dallas just got beat down and their soul taken last week at home against Denver. I think they want to come out this week and make a statement and just put up big time points. I think Jerry will be in the ear of like, hey, we need to score 50 because I'm upset because this stadium cost a lot of money. So
You better make me happy.
Yeah, make me happy, Mike McCarthy. And if you're coming down to it, I have no problem taking a tight end on a team that has a really, really, really good quarterback. He fits the system, and they should have a lot of opportunity to go with points. Again, that's really all you're looking. Unless, granted, the year has been weird, but unless you've got Kelsey, Waller, Kittle, I guess Hawkinson to a degree as well. Unless you've got and Kyle Pitts now has emerged. Unless you've got one of those solid studs at tight end, you're really just hoping for a tight end to give you targets and some touchdown potential. And I think Dalton Schultz is firmly in that camp this week, given the matchup and given the kind of context and circumstance of what Dallas is right now.
Yeah, just to play off that a little bit, obviously we don't know who else is on Kayson's team here. We don't know who else is on the waiver wire, but maybe some other guys in that area. I really like. I'm gonna kill myself for saying this, but the Pat Freiermuth kid for the Steelers looks solid.
A Steeler?
I know he looks solid, and he is getting those red zone looks. A 2-touchdown game this week. Ben obviously struggles getting the ball, pushing it downfield to the outside now in this point in his career. And I feel like, the tight end position, the routes over the middle of the field are just easier for him to make those plays. So, if he was out there, I've grabbed Pat in a few leagues off the waiver wire here this past week going into the 2-touchdown game. And actually I was lucky enough to get him in another league as kind of a backup tight end that, where I do actually, to be honest, now that I think about it, didn't even crossed my mind when I started answering this question, but I have a team with Dalton Schultz that I picked up Pat Freiermuth as my backup tight end now to just kind of play off of that. So I would keep an eye on him. And this week, the matchup against Detroit, obviously, I like that matchup for him. And isn't your boy Dawson Knox back this week? Right?
There's a lot of guys. Fant coming back, Knox coming back, Logan Thomas coming back. There's a lot of guys. Kittle just came back. There's a lot of guys returning from injury here to give a little more beef to that tight end position.
So, Dawson's just another guy just in that range. So just to give, Kaysen some other thoughts of tight ends maybe in that range, I kind of like Dawson Knox this week against the Jets. I think the Bills are certainly going to want to come out and impose their will a little bit and make up maybe fight off some demons from last week's game. And Knox was, rolling there a little bit with Josh Allen.
I gave 5 straight games with the touchdown before he went
down.
down.
So that's a guy maybe I would take a look at because Schultz has definitely fallen off a little bit here. In recent weeks, in my opinion. So I wouldn't be upset if I pivoted, to Knox or Freiermuth this week over Schultz.
Yeah, I think it's crazy.
I love the idea of Logan Thomas long term. This was a guy with top 10 tight end potential before the season came in. He fits the offense so well. Coming back off of IR now, starting to practice this week.
They've also struggled. No one has stepped up as a second option.
Ricky Seals-Jones looked cool for 2 weeks and then went back down. And Thomas is also a really good inline blocker and doesn't really leave the field, knock on wood. If he is out there on waivers, get him. If you can add him as a free agent, get him. Or this is also one, if somebody's got him on their roster, maybe they might think it's weird that you're trying to trade for a guy who's just coming back. And maybe they're like, well, does they know something I don't? Now I'm not going to do this trade. But I would try to acquire Logan Thomas. I think he's a very big buy low candidate as well. And again, that's another position. Tight end can be such a crapshoot if you all of a sudden put yourself in there Logan Thomas, especially with Curtis Samuel being down, Logan Thomas is the number 2 option in that offense that is going to throw a little bit and do some things. So, yeah, that's a solid buy.
Heck, we were talking earlier about finding that combination. Like Rich talked about, picking that up. That's, if you have in your league the guy that had Logan Thomas picked up Pat Freiermuth, that's a perfect way to go and trade for Logan Thomas.
Dude, you got Pat Freiermuth. Yeah,
they're going to feel really comfortable with it. They got the guy who's
you got the best tight end in football in Freiermuth. You don't need Thomas. Just give me Thomas.
So as I think we're getting into the Thursday Night Football game here tonight, so let's kind of wrap things up with some of our final takeaways or some of our picks for the week. I know Rich joked about it last week, kind of settled things down a little bit, but as some of the different things happened and the house has really taken control the last 2 weeks, that has been at my detriment. I have been on a nasty cold streak the last 2 weeks of trying to work my way out of it this week. There's some games that I like, but I'm easing into it a little bit more this week after taking my medicine and taking a beating the last 2 weeks. Are there some games that you like here this week, Rich?
Yeah, no, Greg, to your point, I put it out on the tweeter, but yeah, 0-6 2 weeks ago after off to, I think I was 25-12 or something at that point.
Awesome.
And, went 0-6 2 weeks ago. So this week I really kind of took the foot off the pedal a little bit and just only did 3 plays, went 2-1. So, I profited a little bit. But yeah, it's been a little bit rough these 2 weeks. So you need to try to adjust, right? I think the house took a beating the first 4 or 5 weeks, and then they really made it up. And that happens a lot. Happens a lot during the seasons. Ebb and flow a little bit. This particular week, I know Jacksonville just came off of the win against Buffalo, but I mean the Colts look good, and the Colts can run the football and control the game. Where the Bills, obviously, that is an Achilles heel for the Bills that can't do that.
The only positive the Jags have is that D line, and that's not going to work against Quentin Nelson and that Indianapolis offensive line.
Yes. So I think, I love teasing them. I actually like them straight up too, at 10. I think the Colts at home are gonna bust up the Jaguars a little bit. I know the Browns on the road, they no more Odell Beckham, addition by subtraction. They are getting 2.5 right now, versus New England. Obviously, no Chubb. If they had Chubb, that line probably wouldn't be 2.5 towards New England. But, the Browns can still run the football regardless if Chubb's there or not. I think the Browns go in and beat Patriots in New England this particular week. I like the Chargers against Minnesota. I like the Chargers at home, -3 against the Vikings. The Vikings played tough and hung in there with the Ravens last week. But I think the Chargers will win that game and then cover the spread out there in Los Angeles this week.
I like that a lot. Anthony, any sticking out for you?
Right now, I'm still kind of shocked by it. The Rams are only a 4-point favorite on Monday night against San Francisco.
I have it as 3.5 on mine.
Like, I would jump on that right now. I like that a lot. I like the Chargers for the same reasons that Rich meant. And to tie one back that we mentioned earlier, I like the Broncos at home against Philly, 2.5 points right now. I don't think the matchup is tremendously strong from the Eagles' standpoint. I think what Denver wants to do on defense matches up well with kind of giving Philly some problems, and Philly's defense is no bueno, especially with Slay potentially having a knock, and they're starting to cook a little bit with what they do on offense. So from a matchup standpoint, I think it favors Denver. I also I say it every week, I'm a big believer in like the West Coast teams going east, East Coast teams going west. You have that in this instance with Philly going to Denver combined with that stupid mile-high air, and it's tough to breathe out there, and it's weird. So, yeah, give me Denver right now, favored by 2.5, and that big Rams Monday night with them only getting 3.5 or 4, depending on what you're looking at. Either way, I think they're solidly a touchdown, type of victory for them, maybe even double digits. So those are mine.
I like that a lot. And there was a lot, up until the last 2 weeks, and all of a sudden now you had the Rams losing, you had Dallas losing, you had Buffalo losing. There had not been touchdown favorites losing. They were killing it, and that was all the teasers that Rich was talking about, where you could find those touchdown favorites. You tease it down under a field goal. All they got to do is win. There aren't very many of those this week, but there's a couple still. I think Dallas at home in Atlanta. I don't know if I love 7.5. I do think Dallas is going to win that game. The same thing. I think Detroit is scrappy. But I don't think Pittsburgh's going to lose to Detroit. And those are two games where I think I don't love them to cover 7.5. I don't love them to cover over a touchdown. But you give me Dallas at home and Pittsburgh at home, beating Atlanta and Detroit, and all they got to do is win. I think that's an outcome you're going to see. I think that Pittsburgh's going to win that game. I think that Dallas is going to win that game, and you can get that down to 1.5 each. I think that that's a healthy one to be able to go after. I agree. I like the Chargers. I'm going to stay off that Denver game. I agree there, but I don't know. I feel weird about a little bit of a letdown coming off of that big Dallas upset.
And it's hard to go against Jalen Hurts. I get it.
Well, obviously,
I see
you're going against the Undertaker. It's really tough.
And Sirianni, the genius.
So that's a tough one to look at. I also, for some reason, I like New Orleans, and I'm not sure why. I feel
of course, Tennessee gets New Orleans the week that Kamara is not healthy and seriously. Might not play.
Yeah. So we'll see where that line goes. I think that all the fluky plays, like Tennessee didn't play that great Sunday night when they beat the Rams. It was a lot of fluky stuff with a pick six and an interception back to the 3-yard line that were just kind of weird. And that's back-to-back weeks that Tennessee's had a quarterback do something weird with the ball out of the end zone to gift them a touchdown.
They're living on so just to compare, not because we cover the Bills on this network, the Bills defense is like a sum of their parts. The Titans defense is Byard, Landry, Jeffrey Simmons, and a linebacker, either Long or Evans, making a play. And these last several weeks, they just keep hitting. Byard keeps making plays. Simmons keeps making plays. I don't know how long that'll continue, but that's why they're putting up the numbers that they are and what they're doing. It's just, and you keep thinking like, well, this will be the week it won't happen anymore. And then it continues to happen. You're just like, when does it stop?
Well, a guest you had on your show a couple weeks ago, Nate Tice, made a really great point that it's one thing. The Rams have built an athletic, versatile zone running scheme offensive line, and they're on the lighter side of things. The Saints have a monstrous, enormous offensive line. It's a lot harder to manhandle their offensive line in any format. And if that's basically what they've created is either their Tennessee's defensive line can manhandle you and it goes downhill like a snowball, or if they can't manhandle you and get home, you find out that their secondary is terrible and you rip them apart. And there's no in between. It's either Tennessee's defense looks awesome because their defensive line's eating, or they look terrible because all they need is to get to 2.5, 3 seconds, and then the quarterback realizes, oh, all my guys are open. This is great. Yeah. And that the Saints' offensive line might be just strong enough and big enough to hold them off and be like, yeah, we can hold up here, that they'll be able to find the open guy. So it's interesting. I'm curious to see. This is going to be a really good litmus test for that if they're able to continue their
That game's going to be a slugfest too. Anytime you have these games like this, the Saints defense brings it, especially for these physical matchups, and they know what Tennessee wants to. Super underrated. And if you ever had a defense where they have talent for sure, but they're just like dogs on defense. Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, Malcolm Jenkins, Marshawn Lattimore. These dudes are sound technically, but also ready for a fight at any point in time. You know that they're going to take that that challenge of the Titans offense in this game. That's why betting that game scares me, because I feel like it's such a slugfest. I could see it genuinely going either way. That's a really good matchup for this week. And it all comes down to if Tennessee's studs make plays or they don't. And that's so unpredictable.
So, Rich, any final thoughts for the people?
Just one real quick thought. Since Jonah did throw this up, I'll get to it real quick. 60 seconds. He had a trade out here. Rodgers and Debo for Taylor and Cooper. I like the Taylor and Cooper side of that. Everything, Greg, that you said on the Eyuk comments earlier, I like Cooper over Debo for that reason. And also, Dallas has the second easiest schedule against wide receivers the rest of the way from a fantasy standpoint. So even though they haven't performed well to this point, Cooper's still been okay. So I like Cooper over Debo in that deal, and I like Jonathan Taylor over Aaron Jones. So just real quick on that one for Joan, I wanted to get that out there for him. So I would do that deal and grab Taylor and Cooper. But other than that, now I'm excited for some more football. Again, I hope the Browns can take care of business against the Patriots this weekend for everybody on this, for the Bills and for myself as a Browns fan. And just hit me up on Bird River Sports. I'll put my actual money plays out there as usual Sunday morning, usually an hour or two before kickoff. And any other questions you have, throw them out there on the Twitter, and we'll get to them.
Awesome, Anthony. How about you?
Good weekend of football coming up from a fantasy perspective and just real football perspective. Good matchups. just entertaining stuff all around, and I'm excited for that. This is, the meat of the season for the NFL and for fantasy football. And tonight's got some good stuff too. I'm excited to watch North Carolina and Pitt play some college football that I paused and have not been watching that as of right now. I'm waiting for somebody to come in and be like, "Oh, the score is this. And this game sucks." But no, we're in the thick of it. At this point, we're starting to come up on Thanksgiving. Trade deadlines are coming up for fantasy. Playoffs are around the corner. This is the time when you need to hunker down and figure out who you are and what your team is this year and what you need to do going forward. That's why I think this episode is really great for that. And it's an exciting time. We're starting to get into winter. You can put your Christmas tree up now. I mean, I shouldn't say that because I have this guy up all year. Damn it, I can never figure out the motions.
What direction
there it is.
were you to point? Yeah.
There it is. Yeah, because it's mirrored. But yeah, Christmas is coming up. You can drink all the eggnog you want. Greg loves eggnog just as much as I do. Look at his face. Look at the deliciousness. He knows how good it is. Put a little nutmeg in it. Look how Greg's just salivating over there. Look, he has to cough because of how good it is. It's a good time to be alive.
So I am excited. A lot of good things going on. Very exciting things to be able to keep track of. Make sure you're checking out all the stuff we have going on the Cover One Network. Make sure you're checking out our sponsor over Underdog Fantasy. Download the Underdog Fantasy app. Use promo code Cover One. Get you up $10 free. Be able to have a little bit of fun. If your season-long team isn't going the way you think it should or how you would envision, you can use that to be able to still be able to have yourself a good time and still be able to do a new draft each week to be able to try out new teams. So go ahead and have some fun there. But make sure you're checking out at Anthony Prohaska at pro__ant. Rich Haynes over at Burn River Sports. You can find me at Greg Tompsett. But you have been listening to Cover One Fantasy, and we are out.